The Legacy Files with Grant Cameron.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Grant Cameron, and you're welcomed back to the Legacy Files. I'm joined by my co-author and co-assistant, Desta Barnabe from Ontario, and we're going to be talking a little bit about getting into AI. We're both very much infatuated with AI. We've had some sort of discussions about how it works, which is better. Is it actually conscious? There's even a computer that's sort of claiming it's conscious, and we've had a lot of discussion, but Desta's moved on, and we're going to be doing some audio stuff now because that's what's big. People don't really read anymore. People are into audio, especially if they're traveling like in Toronto or LA. I'm now in Vancouver, so I've actually first time I'm actually have to drive on freeways, and I can't believe people can actually do this. But if you've got audios, then people will listen to audios while there's 2 hours in traffic and stuff like that. So Desta's starting to get into that, and the first one she did was her book. And one of the things I sort of learned from your little uh, podcast, which I want to get you to talk about, your little recording you did, is that you actually got reprimanded doing zoology. Tell me that story. I didn't know that story. I've known you for a long time. Tell that story. And I got that from your little podcast thing.
Yeah, so we figured out how to make a book review with two AIs. A long time ago, like probably a year ago, I saw this and I thought it was so cool that someone had put in it was a philosophy. It was like the history of philosophy. They put this whole like PDF of all the history of philosophy for humans into AI and then got them to do a two different AI, a female voice and a male voice, doing a not a book review because it's like doing a review on the history of philosophy, like for humans, right? And I thought it was so crazy because, well, first of all, because they were just like kind of arguing back and forth. They were critiquing what was written, but also they were doing it from an AI standpoint, which I thought was crazy. And they were basically saying, like, oh, humans, they're so it reminded me of this remote viewing thing, but they were going like, "Oh, humans, they get so hung up on concepts that they get stuck and they just talk about it for like 100 years and they don't move on because they're just fighting about it and they're laughing, saying like, "Oh, those silly humans." It's so isn't it funny how they also do this? And I thought, "Holy, that's crazy." But yeah, so we just figured out, Matt and I just figured out how to do this. And then so I decided we're going to do our own book review. So I just put in my new book, the MK Ultra for Children. I put it into them to get them to talk back and forth and do like a book review, like a little podcast on like as a review for my book. And it was like, it's kind of creepy. I was like cringing the whole time listening to it. And but it was interesting. So anyway, so that's what we're doing, and I'm going to do all of Grant's books and all of the books just because it's interesting to get instead of us just writing a one-page review or like description of the book and talking about it. This is like kind of interesting because it's a new thing, right? So it's like two AI voices without any prompting discussing what they just read in the PDF that we gave to them. So yeah, so I think it's interesting. But yeah, so I was so part of the book is it's the book is MK Ultra for Children. It's about the GATE program, the Gifted and Talented Education program that I was in the 70s and a lot of people were in. And so, this one theory that was online, people are saying that there was this thing where they were kind of testing for compliance between kids. And there's a theory that a lot of the people that were very compliant were later in their lives helped and they got big positions of, power or authority or whatever. They were like judges or like leaders of things, CEOs, and they were like somehow helped mysteriously maybe through like, oh, what luck. Someone found me and now I'm getting an interview at this corporation and it's just like very strange, accelerated, I don't know, like a career path kind of thing. But some people, the theory online, and I put this in the book, is that people were kind of the opposite. So the non-compliant kids, however they tested that in the GATE program, were kind of like every time that they were trying to do something that had to do with their career path, kind of, that they were like, blocked. And we did a study, like we're doing surveys on our website, mysterialuna.com, and on your website, presidentialufo.org. And it's for people who were in the GATE program, and it's just a questionnaire, like a survey, to help get some information, so we can get some information. And what I found in that survey is almost everyone, so I think it was 85 or 90% of the people that have replied, a couple dozen people that have replied to the survey, all say that they were non-compliant children, and they all believe that their career path was blocked in some way. And that sounds crazy. So I wouldn't have really believed it unless I felt like that. So my very quick story is, I was in zoology in university, and like I was majoring in zoology, and so it's like a 4-year program, major zoology, and I was in zoology because I love animals, and assumed that everyone else in my class in these like second, third, fourth year classes were in zoology because they loved animals. I'm not really sure why else you would pick something like that if you didn't. And but all these labs, they kind of made a mistake in the in that AI thing. They said that it only happened once, but this happened for years. So one of my classes, a bunch of my classes, we had to pith. It was called pithing frogs, right? So we were doing all these experiments on frogs where you had to like basically kill them, but you're killing their brain. So you have to stick this thing into their brain and mush it up in the back room, and then you bring like brain dead frog out, and you like string up his legs and pour all these epinephrine and norepinephrine and all these chemicals to show that the muscles still twitch, like there's still like muscle fibers, like things are still happening even though the brain is dead. So it's just like experiments. And I was always fighting with my TA and my professor, saying, I'm not going to the back room and killing a frog. Are you nuts? Like what? Are we living in the dark ages? Why do we even have to use like animals in the first place? I'm literally in zoology like because I love animals. So I'm not doing it. And the crazy thing is, the rest of my entire class, everyone just did it. And I was just like talking to the people saying, you don't have to do this. Like, why would you willingly go in the back? And some people were doing this compliant thing where they were just saying like, we're supposed to do it, so we're doing it. And I'm like, well, I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not going in the back. And I said, give me a 0, do whatever you're doing, but I'm not doing that. And so for a lot of these experiments, for those ones, the killing the frog ones, I still got graded. You didn't have to go do it, but I just wasn't doing it. And I was kind of becoming a problem because I was telling everyone, you don't have to go in there and do it. Why are we even doing this? And I was, fighting with my TA and stuff, saying like, there's supposed to be 3D computer models of animals. Why are we doing this and killing all these animals? This is crazy. And then, but there was another class where you were supposed to drown a rat in front of you, like actually I don't even remember what the spirit meant because I wouldn't do it. But this one, my professor said, you have to do it. This is part of the experiment. You're doing it and you're taking notes. I can't even remember what it was, but I didn't do it, so I don't really know. But I said, I'm not doing it. And he said, well, you better be doing this one or you're going to get 0. And I said, well, then obviously I'm getting 0. But like, this is crazy. This is not fair. Like, this is not fair. You should be giving me alternate, papers to write and all this stuff for my grade. And he says, no, I'm not going to. I'm not giving you a different paper to write. And I didn't. And the professor who was doing this, it was animal physiology. My class was a 3rd-year class. He was also the dean of zoology. He was the professor, but he was the dean of the department as well. So normally, if you want to complain about your professor, you go to the dean, but he was the dean. And that was just like one of the classes that he was teaching. So I was like, oh, damn. Like, now how am I going to argue this? But there kept being all these things. And every time there was that had to do with animals, I'm like, well, obviously, I'm not going to start doing it now. I'm not doing it. And please give me a paper. Please give me something else to do. And they wouldn't do it. And then by the time the end of the end of my 3rd year happened, I was just below. I think you had to have a B to stay in the program, and I had like a C plus. So I needed like 1 or 2 marks to get the B so I could continue in the program in my last year after 3 years of doing all these classes. And the only person that you can appeal to is the dean. So I appealed, And I knew hundreds of people when I was in university. I had tons of friends. Everyone appealed classes all the time. If they just needed a bump up, like 1 or 2 or 5 marks, everyone appealed all the time. You had to pay 35 or $40, I think. Do the appeal, the professor gets it and they just go, "Oh, sure." I had never, ever, ever heard of anyone who didn't get their appeal, who didn't get what they wanted through their appeal. And I'd never appealed anything before, and I never did even after that. This was the only mark I ever appealed. And I appealed it, and I said, I have a proper, but it was the same guy, right? It was the same professor. We called him Dr. Dick. I think his nickname was Dick because I've looked it up since then and I can't find him. So I don't really remember what his name was, but I think that his nickname was Dick. And so we just called him Dick because he was a dick, it was a dick move what he was doing. So I went and I sat in his office and said, like, this. I'm begging you for these 1 or 2, whatever it was, 1 or 2 marks to get a B because I want to stay in zoology. I was going to go to marine biology. I was going to move to the island, Vancouver Island, to like Banfield Station. It was like a big marine biology department in Canada, and I was supposed to transfer after I got my zoology degree, transfer to marine biology. And he was just like, "No, I'm not giving it to you." And I was shocked because I thought basically that they had to. Like, I almost thought at that point that if you paid, you got it because all my friends did it all the time and they always got the mark. And he wouldn't give it to me. And I was so mad. I'd just been in school for, I think, 3.5 years to get that 3 years of my degree. And he said, "No, I'm not doing it." And I said, well, you have to do something. You have to give me a side project, do this, do this. And he says, "No, I don't have to do anything." And I was so mad. And I said, well, the guy was like 80 years old at the time. So I said, "Well, fine, don't do it then. And I'll drop out and I won't finish my last year and I'll wait till you retire and I'll just come back for my last year when you're retired." And he says, "No, you're not going to. I have your file right here and I'm going to put on your file that you can't come back. Like that this is it. You're kicked out. You didn't meet the minimum requirement which was the B mark. And so you're kicked out of zoology. You're kicked out of the program. You're going to have to figure out a different degree to get." After 3.5 years of like killing myself in that program, I was like, "You're not doing this." So I said, "Well, fine, I'll just go. I'll take my marks. I'll go to BC. I'll go to the University of Vancouver, like UBC, and I'll take these marks and I'll just transfer them and I'll try to get the like parallel, like I'll try and just get my marks transferred over, whatever." And he says, "No, I'm going to make sure that this is on your file that you're never going to be able just to go to a and finish off this zoology. You're kicked out of zoology. There's nothing that you can do. You're not coming back in." And so I made up all these arguments and he said no. He said no, and you're never going to be able to. And I, basically said, what can I do then? He said, "The only thing you could do is start from scratch, start from year one and start again, because it's going to be for anyone who gets your transcript to say that you are not allowed to continue in this zoology program. You were kicked out of it. So you got to start from day one," because I wouldn't kill all these animals. And I thought horrible things, and I won't go into that part. But so that I really feel because of that, I had to go back to school for another year to get a general science degree, even though I was in a 4-year major degree. And I had to go get classes, first year classes, which were ridiculous and so easy. And with all the young people, that were just starting university, to get a basic 3-year science degree. So I went a step down, but had to go for a year extra to get this because this guy completely blocked my path, and it was not necessary at all. It wasn't because I was a bad student, wasn't because of anything except for I wouldn't do the one thing that was just ridiculous. How could that be something that you have to do? And they wouldn't have given you well, that would never fly these days, of course. But so I really do feel that I was blocked because I ended up like managing a bunch of CD stores. Like I was in the music industry, right, in retail after this. I went to school for I ended up going to school for 5 years to get just a general science degree because of that professor, and ended up working in retail for like $10 an hour. And I ended up doing that because I was so, it's so disheartening, and it was so, it ruined everything that I was going to do with my whole life, like working with animals, right? So I was so mad about that for so long. And so I didn't believe what these people were saying with this online theory that the non-compliant were blocked in their career path. But I definitely absolutely align with that. And all these surveys that I've gotten back since then, that's kind of like what a lot of people say that happened to them as well. So, who knows? It's just a theory, but I definitely feel that was my story. I feel like I was blocked.
Well, you did end up with a podcast and books and
Yeah.
author and so I think it's done well. But in terms of now, when you're telling these stories, I was thinking back. That was one of the buildings I ran because that's what I did at university. I was managed a bunch of buildings, and Duff Roblin, where you went, was, and I remember them bringing the animals in, especially the rats. The number of, coming in shipments of rats and stuff like that. If I had known, I would have tried to do something, but I didn't realize this was actually going on. And you do
Hmm.
see the compliant people now. I mean, you take a look at, they're even having a meeting with generals or something like that. These generals in the United States where they all have to go in and talk about their allegiance or something. I read an article on their allegiance or something like that, and you go
Oh,
like,
goodness.
wow, this is just people will all fall in line. Because I remember when I was young, I grew up with a kid who was very, very smart. He won the gold medal at the University of Manitoba, and his family was from Germany. I still remember in the 1960s saying to them, "Why didn't you do something? You were in Germany when
Mhm.
Hitler was going on and all this. Why did you do something?" And they said, "Well, what could we do? We didn't realize it was that bad." All this sort of stuff. And so my whole life I've been stuck with this thing, how people can just sort of fall in line when they're told to do something, whether it's for money or they're afraid or whatever. And so I encourage everybody to buy your book because this is a key element in our society is even the UFO thing, where you step out of line and believe these kind of things and take a lot of flack. A lot of people take the flack, and I think we're all sort of these non-compliant people who basically are determined to find out what the truth is. And we really don't care what anybody says. Even AI, I fight with AI when they say, "Oh, mainland," or they always say things like mainstream science doesn't agree with this. And I said, I don't give a shit what mainstream science. I don't care what you say. I don't care what anybody says. Just tell me what the answer is. I ask you a
Yeah.
question. I don't need to know what all these other people do. And you see this sort of thing that people are expected to fall in line, and a lot of people do, unfortunately. But hopefully, you and I can sort of put out the message and get more people to stand up and tell the truth and get us where we're supposed to go.
And I was going to put the two, remember I think it's called the Milgram. I didn't put them in, but the Milgram experiment.
Oh
There,
yeah.
there was two. There's the jail one, excuse me, and then there's the other one where the guys were getting shocked, right?
Yeah.
And and you could hear, but they were, faking it, but you could hear. So people were put into a room, students at a psychological experiment
Yeah.
were put into a room and told to press a button, and it was supposed to be delivering a shock to another guy in another room.
Yeah.
And you can hear the person. So then they would press like a low dose shock, and the guy would go, and the person would say like, "Oh, I can hear him. It sounds like he's in pain." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, no, no, no." Like the guy running the experiment is just like, "Oh, crank it up a little bit, do it again." And some people are like a little uncomfortable and saying, and you press it again and it's a higher dose. The guy's like, "Ah." And it's just like, "Oh, damn, this guy, it's hurting this guy." And he's just like, "Oh, no, no, it's okay. He's okay." Turn it up again and press the button again until the guy was like screaming and it sounded like he fell out of his chair. I think that was it. And the people just kept doing it. And it was almost all of them, right? It was a far majority. I don't know if it was 90% or I forget what the numbers were, but a far majority of people will do what they're told.
Yeah.
And even in rooms of people where everyone is saying they hold up, there's another one where they hold up a shape of a triangle and they go around the room and everyone is a plant in the room except for the one person, right? And then they say, "What shape do you see?" And all the people go, "It's a circle, it's a circle, it's a circle." And by the time they get to the one guy, the guy goes, "It's a circle." Because even though he knows it's a triangle, because it's like peer pressure, it's so
Yeah.
many psychological things, right? So it's like people don't want to not fit in. They don't want to like go against what an authority figure is telling them. They don't want to look crazy to other people. They think that they must be seeing something wrong and it must be their fault. Like so many different things come into it, but it's the vast majority of the people will be compliant, so not to disturb, the status quo or whatever. So yeah, I think it's a huge problem, and I've never been like that, and I don't know why, and I don't know where it would have come from, but whatever the little rebellious streak, I think a lot of people in this GATE program and the surveys definitely have it. And definitely, I think people in the UFO, because it's just people that will stand up for what they believe, even if you look crazy, talking about UFOs for, 10 years or trying to
Yeah.
link all these things or whatever. People saying, oh, Grant, why don't you get back in the nuts and bolts? This consciousness stuff is bullshit. It's like, so you have to have some guts because you know that some people are going to go against you. But the thing is, if you believe in truth, and I'm just trying to find the truth, I don't care what anyone else says, it doesn't matter to me. But a lot of people don't have that, like strength or courage or whatever it is to believe, trust in what they believe and stand up for it.
Yeah. So your book is basically everybody in the UFO community, I think, knows, and consciousness probably as well, about the MK Ultra program. Yours is basically looking at the children. And the one question I had to you is how far advanced do you think the government actually is in doing this kind of stuff? Because I had the experience, I had the experience with the psychedelics where I have these guys that seem to appear in the site. First, it was one guy, and then the second time, these guys appeared, and they appeared to be, to me, the impression I got was they were military people who were experts on computers. And the one guy says, we've decided to take your piece off the board and make the game more exciting. And the fear of God, I'm telling you, it was like, what are you? Because it was so real. And I don't know
Meaning that
whether
they
that
were
was,
going to kill you, meaning that
yeah,
they were going to
yeah,
kill you. Yeah.
yeah. And that they had this control. I remember I was going around to channelers and stay, and do they have this power? Can they do this? Is somebody able to, figure out the reality and then play with how reality actually works and changes all this kind of stuff? And it basically got the thing, but it was pretty scary in the middle of it. And so I wanted to ask you, how far do you think the government has actually got in terms of developing, technology that will mess with people?
It's so it's so hard to say. Yeah, I know that there's the two sides, right? Some people think that they don't have anything,
Yeah.
that all these Kit Green and Gary Nolan, all these people say they don't have hardly anything. They can't figure out how to fly the ship. They can't figure out how to back engineer or how to fly a UFO kind of thing, the
Yeah.
anti-gravitics. But a lot of people think that they're way, way, way far advanced and they have like the 20 and back program and we're going to Mars already and the jump rooms are active and all that kind of stuff. I would think that I'm kind of, I guess, maybe in the middle where I don't think there's any chance that we're that highly advanced. I think that a lot of big jumps probably came from back engineering craft and stuff from the retrievals from the late 40s or whatever. But I don't think they're anywhere near. Yeah, I guess I'm in the middle, but more towards I don't think we really know anything. I don't think that there's like big communication between different alien species where they're like working on, sharing technology and stuff. I think that we're way behind, and whoever the ETs or whatever the phenomena is so much further, so much more far than we are with science and technology and stuff, to the point of where I don't even think it's about that anymore. I think it's like, more of I think that it's like a reflective simulation, and I don't even think that kind of stuff really matters that much. I think that this world is just reflective, and when we do really good things, we kind of get good things back. When we're, messing around and doing, more, like evil things to other people, we're kind of like that vibration sticks with you, and you kind of have other things attracted to you that are like that. And if you're in a different vibe, it's just like attracts like. I think it's more like that. But for the government having technology, I don't think that they have. I think that they have a lot of stuff that they're not telling us, of course, but nothing like what some people are saying with, jump rooms going to different dimensions and stuff. I don't really think that.
Yeah, because I hope they don't have
Possible.
the psychic stuff, because that's pretty scary stuff. If they can walk inside your head, because you can see. I mean, the old idea that I already knew before our present situation is that the people who end up at the top are often very, neurotic and crazy people, because nobody else wants the job. It's like they're the only ones that think that they have know everything, and you get these people at the top, and as we develop these technologies, it becomes very, very dangerous as to who has access to these technologies, that you can get just one person and you can create a lot of havoc. And if you can't turn it around, you can't stop the person. So hopefully they don't have the psychic potential, because I had the one experience and it was pretty nerve-wracking, where you suddenly think, well, holy cow, can they actually do this kind of stuff? So we'll leave it at that, and
Yeah,
we'll move on to a little bit more on the idea about the book reviews and where we're going to go with that kind of stuff.
sounds good. See you next time.
Yep.